My name is Jonathan Lewis. I am a full-time hospital chaplain at Methodist South Hospital in Memphis. I'm also a part-time campus minister at the UT Health Science Center. First heard a call to ministry when I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school in Caregiver, Tennessee, is where I grew up. And it was at a youth group event one night, actually. It was on a Sunday night. And the youth leader that night asked us, as sort of our prayer focus, to pray about our futures. And, oddly enough, even though I had been very involved with the youth group and had done a lot of things with my church, through my teenage years, I had really, for some reason, given very little thought to my future and, maybe what God wanted to do sort of through me. And so he asked us to pray about that night. And almost immediately, as I was just very earnestly asking God what he wanted to do with my future, I felt a call to ministry. And from that moment, everything since then was all about fulfilling that call. So it first happened when I was a senior in high school. I was 18 years old. I would say mostly through support of all kinds. Family and friends that were close to me were very affirming. When I told them that I had felt called to ministry and that I wanted to pursue my academic goals at college, with that call in mind. And even that, at first I didn't know what the ministry would look like, even though I wasn't sure if I would be, a preacher or a missionary or a chaplain or, I didn't know what it would look like. But that I still had this very strong sense spiritually of call. My family and friends were very supportive of that. I did have people say that they thought that I had gifts and talents that were suited for it. Sort of gave me their kind of 10 cents on maybe, what direction they thought that might go. But I was very blessed to have, a good network of support around me that did affirm my call and that were really supportive. Like I said, it was my senior year of high school. In fact, it was spring of my senior year of high school. So very much the next thing on the horizon for me was college. And I knew that I was going to the University of Georgia and was already thinking about sort of what to major in or what I might study. As a result of feeling called to ministry, I declared as a religion major and ended up getting my degree from Georgia in religion. I started a minor actually in speech communications as well, thinking that would be good for sort of any sort of ministry really if I was going to end up being someone who preached a lot, or even if I went into some sort of like counseling field where you needed to be good at sort of interpersonal communications. Didn't actually finish the minor in speech communications, but took a lot of classes in it and really liked it. So that was one thing right off the bat that I knew that I was going to stick with my plans and go ahead and go to college and get my degree, but very much what I chose to study was with the call to ministry in mind. So that was one of the first steps, absolutely. One of my really important spiritual connections when I was at college at Georgia was the Wesley Foundation, the United Methodist student ministry there. I was a little bit involved with like a local congregation in Georgia, but not deeply involved. Very much my sort of spiritual wellspring in college was Wesley Foundation. And just through a lot of the relationships I had there and, some of the ministries I was involved with them, really enabled me to sort of continue to explore that sense of call and where it might go. I'll say again that I for a long time, really did not have a sense of what specifically my ministry would look like. People who know my call story from the beginning will tell you that I often said, I don't know what I'm going to do, I just know who I'm going to work for. And that was true. I had still this very strong sense that I was called. Really did, probably the one inclination that I did have from the beginning was that I was not going to be a preacher. I did have a sense very early on that I might end up in something that was outside of a parish. So that was a little different. I mean, a lot of people that have, a strong, especially a strong early call to ministry, a lot of those people end up feeling very called to preach and know that they're going to be, ministers or pastors. And I had sort of a different experience through that. But, through my college years, through seminary, when I went to Duke to do my seminary work, I did a unit of field education as a pastor at a 2-point charge in North Carolina. Really, really liked it, but didn't like it nearly as much as I liked the unit of field education I did the next summer, which was at a hospital. That really, really clicked with me and was a big thing in sort of leading me down the next steps for where my call would go. Yeah, I had a very good experience with the mentor relationship in the candidacy process. My mentor was Dr. Martin McCain. He is the pastor at Grace United Methodist Church in the Whitehaven community of Memphis, which is also where the hospital that I work at is in Whitehaven. So that relationship was a natural fit for him to be able to share with me sort of some dynamics of the community and a lot of the patients and families that I was going to be dealing with. In addition to just his experience, as a pastor and how that helped me, he also had some chaplaincy in his background. He was a military chaplain. I think it was in the Navy. Not sure which branch, but he was a military chaplain before he was a parish pastor. So he also had that experience to share with me as someone who was, just getting started in the ministry as a chaplain. So, our opportunities to share and for him to kind of talk about his experience was really, really helpful to me. Now I'm in the residency process, and I would say that has been even more helpful. And far and away, the best part of the residency process has been my experience with my peers. The other probationary candidates that are in the residency process with me. We meet about once a month, and our opportunities to sort of share with each other about things that we're learning about ourselves, things that we're learning about what it's like to be in ministry, our ability to support each other, encourage one another, pray for one another, talk about things besides ministry, just a covenant to share with each other about just life and, and our families and our work. It's really, really encouraging, and it's been really, really important to my growth, I think, as a minister. And I hope that that's preparing me for ordination, preparing me for going before the Board of Ordained Ministry and all that involves. I think that it is helping me to prepare for that, but I know that it's making me a better person because the relationships that we formed have been really great and really important. As a chaplain, at my hospital we have about 100 beds, which is not a really, really, really large hospital. So I'm able to be on pretty much all the floors in a given day. Every single day I'm going to visit all of our new admits, so everyone that was admitted to the hospital the day before. I'm just going to stop by and introduce myself, let them know that there is a hospital chaplain there that's available for any kind of spiritual care or resources that we can help with. Introduce myself to the patients as well as the patients' family members, let them know that we're there for them as well. In addition to that, I'm going to participate in some of the, the nursing rounds that they do about the patients. Big part of being a hospital chaplain is supporting the hospital staff. So just as much as you're there to provide care to the patients and the families, you also very much want to be deliberate about providing care to the nurses and the doctors and the staff at the hospital. In a lot of ways, they are really more sort of my flock than the patients and families, because the patients and families come and go. A lot of them, within a day or two. The people that you work with are the ones that are there every single day, and that are going through, some of the same experiences that you are. So a big part of what I do is caring for them as well. Obviously, if there's any sort of emergency, if someone in the hospital, certainly if there's a death, but even if there's a code, what we call a code, if someone loses their heartbeat or stops breathing and they have to do, emergency procedures to them, anything like that, I'm going to be there for that, again, to support the family, but also to support, the staff. Throughout the year we have special services or things that we do, at different times of the year. We provide spiritual resources, spiritual care, devotional practices, communion, things like that to patients and family members. We do a lot of work in the community too, that I could take time to explain in a lot of ways, but it probably involves a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't think, maybe. There's certainly things that you would expect, but then in a lot of ways the chaplain gets called when they don't know who else to call and they need maybe sort of a different approach than what the typical sort of medical protocol would be. So in that way it involves a lot of creativity, which I really like about. I'll tell you, one of the things that I like most about it is that you never know quite what to expect. And the thing that's really spiritually life-giving about that is that it really requires me to rely on the Holy Spirit, throughout the day. You literally never know what's behind the next door. So as a hospital chaplain, I'm probably knocking on 30, 40, 50 patient doors a day. And I actually have no idea what story I'm going to find myself in when I go through that door. It's really exciting. It can be sort of scary and intimidating. And so the only way to get through that experience and to continue to love it and to grow through it is to rely on the Holy Spirit, is to continue to pray just about every time before you go into a room, that God will remind you that He's with you and that God is doing ministry through you. I really love that about it. You find yourself in a lot of situations that people tell me all the time, I couldn't do your job, or I don't know how you do what you do. And I know why they say that, because they probably are in a hospital for the first time and they're with me when a patient has died and everyone's having a really hard time, and probably what they're thinking is, well, I know how hard this is on me, and he probably has to do this every day. The thing about that is they're not wrong. And I don't really have an explanation for how to do it, or sort of what the secret is, other than I must be called to do it, otherwise why would I? So it is really life-giving to me, and I do love it. I never wake up in the morning and think, oh, I've got to be at the hospital today, or I'm dreading going to work tomorrow. I don't think that. I love doing what I do, and I continually rely on the Holy Spirit to get me through the days. But here I am, and I'm still doing it, and I love it, and it's absolutely a life-giving vocation for me. That's something I've been doing for about 3 years. I've been hospital chaplain for about 6, about 3 of those. I've also been doing the work at UT part-time. And That's been a little bit different. It's probably not what you typically think of when you think about campus ministry. Part of that is because UT in Memphis is probably not what you typically think of when you typically think of a college. It's entirely graduate students. It's all health sciences. So we have a school of medicine, school of dentistry, physical therapy, occupational therapy, a lot of other schools. So it's really nothing at all like a 4-year undergraduate university, just in terms of the student body and their schedules and what they're able to do. So, I've had to adapt some to sort of how I might have pictured what campus ministry should be or can be, to what it actually is at UT. A lot of things that I have done for them is tried to connect them to sort of my work as a chaplain, to things that Methodist Le Bonheur, the hospital system I work for, to Methodist Le Bonheur and things they're doing, because all of my students are health science students. So, a lot of them are kind of working towards that realm anyway, so I want to try and kind of connect them, to the work that's already going on in the hospital, and then also sort of integrate that with their faith, because, there are a lot of students at UT that very much feel that their careers in health science, whatever it may be, is their calling by God and very much an expression of their faith and their desire to serve other people. So as a campus minister at a college like that, I want to foster that. I want to foster that belief that that they are serving God and God's people by doing what they're doing, and maybe sort of provide some opportunities while they're in college to kind of exercise that. So it's good. It's not what I thought it would be when I first got there, but it's been a really good experience, and I'm still growing there, I think. So. In general, if you feel called to be some sort of caregiver, whether or not that's specifically in a ministry role or sort of more generally in a healthcare role or something like that, I would tell you that is a calling, and that you will know it when you do it, and you love doing it. So whatever that opportunity is to sort of practice that when you're exploring that as a, whether that's as a teenager or, you're a college student or you're, looking for some sort of new career path or something, if you have an opportunity, if you think you're interested in nursing, if you have an opportunity to shadow a nurse, to follow a nurse around for a day and see what that's like, see what their daily routines are like. If you have some other opportunity to sort of to practice that in some way, I would suggest that, because it very much is a calling. To be a caregiver all the time can be draining, and it will be especially draining if you don't love doing it. A lot of the people I work with at the hospital who are caregivers and who are very good caregivers, they do it because they love to do it, and they feel very much called to do it. So that's sort of the thing I would say about that in general. Specifically about being a hospital chaplain, the number one thing I would recommend to you is CPE. That stands for Clinical Pastoral Education, and that is basically a way to do what I just recommended, sort of practicing and exploring. That's how chaplains do it. In order to end up in any sort of professional chaplain role, you have to have a number of what they call units of CPE. And the great thing about CPE is that you do it 10 weeks at a time. So you can do one unit, which takes 10 weeks. And after 10 weeks of CPE, you will pretty well know whether or not that is for you. So that's the great thing about it. Even if you go through CPE and you decide that you wouldn't want to be a hospital chaplain full-time necessarily, you will have gained some other things. I know lots of pastors that aren't chaplains, that never wanted to be chaplains, but that did CPE and really benefited a lot from it. So especially if you think you might have some sort of interest in that area, I would very much recommend that to you. I'm a deacon. That's the track I'm on, and that has been perfect for me as a chaplain. Someone who is very United Methodist, very connected to the United Methodist Church, and very affirmed and supported by the United Methodist Church, but being ordained in such a way that I'm not necessarily, going to end up in the parish. I could, but I also have sort of other opportunities. The deacon track has been perfect for that. So I would tell anyone that feels that they have a call to ministry, even if you think that it might be sort of non-traditional, that you have a very strong sense of faith and a very strong sense that God is seeking to do something through you, but maybe you just don't know exactly what it is. I would tell you to run with that feeling, and I would tell you that if your tradition is in the United Methodist Church, or if you're exploring what that looks like in the United Methodist Church, do it. Take the next steps to explore that. Because we do have, the elder track and the deacon track, and that very much accommodates, in my view, that very much accommodates sort of almost anything that God might be doing in you. So, whatever your sense of call is, even if it's very foggy, that's how mine was. For many, many years, I knew that I was called. I was certain that I was called. But I was very uncertain as to what that calling would end up looking like. But I kept taking the next step. And even though I didn't know maybe what was 3 or 4 steps down the road, the next step was confirmed. And then the step after that, and so on and so forth. And now I am, hopefully on the way to being ordained in the United Methodist Church, doing a ministry that's a little bit non-traditional, but it's a ministry that I love. And it's a ministry that I know God is using to serve Him and to serve His people, and it's a ministry that, like I said earlier, is very affirming and life-giving for me. And I know that for this point in my life, I have ended up where God was leading me all along. So I would tell you that whatever that sense is, whatever that calling might be, follow it. Continue to pray about it. And don't think that there's anything outside the box that you can't bring to the church and to the kingdom of God. Whatever it is that God is calling you to do, He's calling you to do that for a reason, and I would encourage you to explore it.